So training and community lessons learned so far, right? A large part of the Bridge2AI sort of consortium is thinking about how we actually begin to look at the workforce issues, begin to sort of engage individuals across the different sort of career paths and sort of components, as well as the interdisciplinary aspects that really are going to be central for biomedical and behavioral AI to sort of move forward.
Hi, I'm Dave Dorr. I'm from the Voice DGP for the Precision Public Health Grand Challenge. Okay, great. This is a little different than the one I presented before, but I think our approach, which the highlights, the lessons learned from our approach are a couple. One is that there is a strong desire of all our learners to think about how voice can be used in the clinical context. That no matter where they come from, whether it's their training as clinicians or already trained in their early careers, or they're data scientists or informaticians, they are like, okay, how would I apply this? And in some ways, voice, it's pretty easy to think about based on our challenges, how that might happen. So in many ways, they're like, let me figure out how I might do this. And they want to jump to that. What we've seen is that we really have to do a lot of interactive education and get them into different groups to really understand how, so that they can understand how you collaborate to get to that end goal while they're still taking the early steps. And what's different about voice, for those of you who work with waveforms, is that it's not, even if you're a data scientist, getting from sort of the raw voice data, which we generally don't give out, to the next set of biomarkers, can feel complex and can require a lot of domain knowledge. In addition, learning how to use these in clinical care and all the issues involved where they might be most appropriate required us to really think through a number of challenges. And so what we've done so far is we consistently are thinking about new challenges that enables us to go where our trainees are in the different contexts. And probably the biggest thing we've learned is sort of to be humble and say we can't assume that they really know a lot about this from the start. And so really trying to engage them in this is really important. We've had a number of different cohorts. Our AI summer school students, who you've heard, were basically over last summer, over 6 to 8, depending on where they were in the 4-school period. And they all ended their summer school with a hackathon. And then we also have had other virtual and in-person hackathons, including one at our Voice Symposium that I mentioned before. And then we've done a number of posters and presentations in our Voice Symposium and really tried to think a lot about how we could help people to generate inferences no matter where they were in their training. And I think that's worked really well. And actually the poster session here last night, I thought was beautiful for that. There were so many different people with different backgrounds, different stages of their training, and really taking that into context made me very excited about it. Now, this is a little too small to see, but it is, I think, my last slide, which is that in general, they really like this approach. It did require a lot of reframing and interactivity, sort of thinking about how we make things more interactive. But what we got out of this is we now have a curriculum that we think is both good for AI and sort of the fundamentals around data and other standard competencies related to AI, and also has a layer on top of it where you can add voice in different interactive ways. And we're actually working with different groups to implement that. We hope to have another opportunity to work with Aim Ahead and with industry as well. So with that, I think I'll leave it there and pass it to the next group. So
Thank you very much. Yulia Levitas-Chukalova for the course group. I will first provide a quick overview of the different approaches to workforce development that we implemented, and then I'll discuss some of the lessons learned from that. So we've developed a one-day workshop. We offered it in 2025 and 24. We started in 23. It's a full day. It's quite intense for the participants. We offer 2 tracks for the beginner users and for the advanced users. We partnered with NVIDIA on some of the training content, on some of the curriculum. What you see here is some of the data, some of the participation data from the 25. In 24, I looked up just to make sure my numbers are right. We had 90 participants. It is high intensity, it is hands-on, it is highly interactive, and participants are walked through the problems, through the data sets. In the beginning course, they are learning some of the introductory tools and approaches, and the more advanced course, they're starting to apply it more. We group the participants, we facilitate their engagement with the data. It also requires mentors and subject matter experts to be available there to guide those participants. So it is not lecture-based, it is really hands-on. We also partnered with Aim Ahead, and this is a different format, right? So that one is one day, this is 9 months. We've developed curriculum, we've enrolled 35. I didn't look that number. 29. Okay, I was close. 29. Any of you are fellows, Aim Ahead fellows in the audience? Okay, we have one. Yay. So we introduce them every week. There is curriculum. They're also starting to work with our data. They are developing their projects. We intentionally put people in teams so that there is also a variability of the expertise and input on the research questions that could be answered through the project. And I'm very pleased to show that map at the bottom of the screen, that participants are truly coming from different geographic regions. We also hope to be able to offer cohort 2. So for any of you who are trainees in the audience, but you're not part of this program, please Google us. We hope that we will be able to do it again. We also partnered, this is another less than a full day event. We've partnered with Duke. We brought a hackathon. Again, very interactive. It's an opportunity to learn from the audience what are the research questions are, and what are the opportunities for the trainees to engage with that. We are learning. So Yale on the first day said that, datathons or hackathons is a great way to use and learn about your data sets and the questions that users have. And so this is another plug. This is another opportunity to engage with us and engage with clinical care, critical care. This is a Society for Critical Care Medicine event that will be offered this summer. So with this, a few lessons learned. First, Michelle talked about user experience and human factors, and it was like, yes, this is exactly what we can do. We are collecting evaluation data, right? And usually what we ask, did you like the course? Yes, right? If we did a good enough job, you should be somewhere in that between 4 and 5. But is that really useful? What else we can do is we can ask them, what was your experience using this tool? Can you walk us through your decision points? Can you help us collect some of that usability data so that we can iterate? So we can recreate this program again. And for the next cohort, it will be a different experience. So we are preparing it for the release. We are preparing and we're collecting this data. It does require some of that intentional planning of what kinds of questions will be asked. And so we can learn from the participants. We can learn with the participants by observing. And also, I included that image in the past, so we can build a path where it's convenient for the user rather than how we think. So we can build the frequently asked questions that are asked by very committed, annoying sometimes, sorry, committed users who are emailing us, right? We appreciate those questions because they help us iterate, they help us build those onboarding documents that are actually responsive. We also realize there is a variety of users. We have some clinicians who really need to have it asynchronously. We have medical students who need to squeeze it in that Thursday afternoon that is allowed for their research. We also have those who can make a longer commitment for those 9 months because they're investing in their training, they're investing in their skill development. And so having that flexibility and meeting the workforce interested in AI research where they are, allowing for those shorter term experiences as sort of testing the waters. Do they want to, can they commit to the 9 months within the program, is something that I hear from all of us doing. And I think that is also a way of learning in which, how can we share this curriculum, and what are some of the longer term formats that could be useful. And then overview of the, oops, this is not, okay. Something didn't save there. What we also realized is the need for mentoring and team science. So, you know, so something's off with the text there. We have a variety of mentors, as I said earlier, who are working with the trainees. What we also realize, some of those mentors may come from the groups that you wouldn't traditionally consider. They're early stage investigators who have subject matter expertise in a certain area. They also may be in non-faculty positions, and they can consult on the data structure, on the standards, on the approaches to the analysis. So when you're thinking about mentoring, think about mentoring mosaics. And also, as I said earlier, we have teams, and we do it intentionally. So there is peer learning and peer mentoring that can happen within the project itself. So I think I'll stop here if there are any questions later on.
Hi, everyone. My name is Monique Bangudi. I work with the bioinformatics and data science team at Hopkins with Dr. Schutz's lab. But before I was a professional in the clinical research field, I was an intern in the AI Ready program. So we got a lot of resources, training, curriculum, and mentorship that I feel like was really crucial to changing the overall trajectory of my career. So I'm going to talk a bit about that today. So I got a lot of resources, training, curriculum, and mentorship that I feel like was really crucial to changing the overall trajectory of my career. So I'm going to talk a bit about that today. So I highlighted some key things that I feel like were crucial to me in my work with data science, which was the Python training that we got during our 2-week boot camp in San Diego. Also, we got over 11-month period curriculum taught by professionals from different clinical research domains, teaching us about a skill set ranging from artificial intelligence and machine learning to data models and standards. We also had a mentorship program where I was mentored by Dr. Christopher Hsu and Stephanie Hong at Hopkins, who were experts in data science and gave me a lot of insight into the importance of data harmonization and data standards, and taught me how to map data into standardized formats and the importance of that. Also, Dr. Sally Baxter helped guide us interns through each project that we created, and helped curate a curriculum that was geared toward our career interests. Also, one of the deliverables that we as interns produced was the data documentation website, which I think is really important for data users who are going to be using the data set. Everything that the project contains that's available to the public, is in the data documentation website. And so I provided a QR code that anybody who wants to utilize the data set could visit this site and look through the elements of the project there. In that website, you'll find an overview of the data domains like vision assessment, retinal photography, and cardiac electrograms. Also, the data dictionary, which contains all the data elements of the project, and the OMOP mapping table that we worked on with the standards team. And I'm going to speak a little bit about the mapping process and what we did with standards on that. So overall for the data set, we used 47 different survey instruments capturing a broad spectrum of data, ranging from clinical data like type 2 diabetes specific data, lab measurements, socioeconomic related data, also data regarding social determinants of health. And all this data exists in various diverse formats, but in order for analysis to be conducted effectively, we need data to be in one concise format. So we map it to the OMOP common data model. We use standard terminologies like SNOMED, LOINC, ICD-10 as standard terminologies to map this data to concise formats. Where there were data elements that weren't able to be effectively mapped to these existing terminology bases, we created custom codes and sent them to Odyssey to be turned into permanent concepts for AI Ready. By utilizing this, we adhere to the FAIR principles and ensure that it is interoperable. So here's an example of what one of our mappings look like. So the lab measurement troponin was collected in this study. And sorry, I don't know why I'm nervous. Oh, I didn't even say that. Sorry. The lab measurement troponin was collected in the study, and this is what the mapping of this looks like. Because it was a lab measurement, we mapped it to LOINC, while conditions were mainly mapped to SNOMED. See, we have the domain, which was a measurement, the concept code we collected, and the mapped concept ID that we eventually used. Any elements that we captured that didn't adhere to these and didn't already exist in these formats, like I said, we created custom concepts. So overall, the internship was very impactful for me. I gained a lot of skills. I wasn't working in data science prior to this. Oh, sorry. But I was able to get mentorship, training, and follow a very didactic curriculum that I feel like really contributed to changing the trajectory of my career, and I'm just very thankful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name's Wade Schultz. I'm an assistant professor at Yale School of Medicine and the PI for our workforce module within Cell Maps for AI and the Functional Genomics Grand Challenge. I think what I'll talk about, where you'll see a lot of common threads that we've experienced within functional genomics, despite being in a slightly different domain than more of the clinically focused DGPs. We run into many of those same issues in terms of how do we deliver content, how do we do that effectively, and how do we build up that knowledge base progressively for participants in our events. When I started on CM4AI, I was quite naive to what a cell map was not really in that space previously. And so it's been, one, a great experience for me, but also one where we've been able to replicate some of that training and educational approach for our participants who may not be familiar with all of these different areas of what are the raw data sets that we use, how do we build out the cell map using AI tools, and then how can you use those cell maps for further applications of AI afterwards. And that's really how we've tried to build out our content is, one, a modular approach so that you can pick and choose those areas that are of interest that you might not have the skills or experience in already, and something where we can help prepare participants by using our recorded didactic lectures in advance of having our events, rather than building out an event where we just get up and present and lack a lot of that hands-on and interactive participation, which is what most participants seem interested in. And so this has been a fairly successful approach where we've published our YouTube channel. I think we're up to about 600 views over the last 6 months, interacting with that content with participants, and we even have subscribers and everything. It's very exciting. Not enough to monetize, but there are subscribers. And then on our website, cm4ai.org, there is our learning pages there, which includes links to our Canvas site, where we offer short courses as well as additional materials for our internship and in-person activities. Over the last several years of the Bridge2AI Award, we've had a number of different events, starting off with a virtual Code Fest or hackathon event that we had in 2024. We had really good participation, good engagement, but there was that lack of how interactive can you be with a fully virtual event. And so what we've really tried to do since then is take a hybrid approach whenever possible. So our face-to-face open house last year, we included both the hands-on portion here in DC, as well as having some of those virtual opportunities. And then last November, we had our first in-person internship that we hosted at Yale. We were actually able to cover travel for a number of participants and trainees to attend that 2-day event, prepared in advance with some of those didactic lectures that we had available on YouTube and through Canvas. And then the hands-on events were very challenge focused. So day one was focused on visible neural networks, where we actually had participants working on optimizing and training those VNNs. And on the second day was focused on large language models to annotate the gene networks. I think we had somewhere around 20-ish participants for that event, and in those 2 days consumed about 2,000 compute hours. And so it was a very successful approach to really getting people hands-on with the tools, working with the code, and for us, gaining really valuable feedback about where were deficits in our documentation. What was, I really like the sidewalk picture for that user experience graph. I remember Minnesota, people would start doing that and they put up snow fencing to prevent it, which never worked out. And that's the same thing here. If we don't have that guide and that pathway of least resistance, people either go find different tools or don't have that level of engagement. So something that we've really worked towards and have tried to incorporate into our upcoming events. So as of last week, we did publish our first Kaggle competition focused on community detection. That's what we'll be going through for the remainder of our open house event today, if anybody's interested in joining. That will be running through July 31st, and we will be progressively releasing some additional code tutorials for it. The one today is focused primarily on classical compute, but something that will be extending and including quantum computing as well. And then over the coming months, including some additional Kaggle competitions focused on immunofluorescence and large language models. Over the rest of the year in August, we'll actually be hosting another in-person internship and hackathon at UAB in Birmingham. So something that will hopefully have that registration available in the next couple of weeks. And if anybody is again interested in attending, that's available through our CM4AI website, cm4ai.org/learning. And then hopefully towards the end of this year and early next year, we'll also be hosting a quantum AI and machine learning workshop, something that will again be a combination of in-person and virtual, with an emphasis on how to apply quantum machine learning to functional genomics and cell maps for AI. So again, something that we could not have done with all of our collaborators, really requires all of those domains of expertise, having those backgrounds in the data modalities, the AI modalities, the tools, and then making sure that we've got really robust documentation and training materials for our participants. So thank you very much. And if any questions, feel free to follow up.
My name is Jack Rincon. I am one of the project managers for the training, recruitment, and mentoring working group. This is Dr. Wei Wang.
Yes, I'm Wei Wang. I'm also from UCLA, so I'm also part of that group.
In spirit of this session, we're going to try to close with lessons learned. So.
Major takeaways this year was the value of a centralized access to the training resources. Early on, we heard from many scholars that like the links are scattered, like some of them are Google Drive, some of them emails or separate platforms, YouTubes. And so by building out a centralized scholar portal, we're finally giving folks a one-stop shop. I remember Scholar regularly request something like this, right? So now we're happy to say it's almost done. It's not quite done yet, but it's almost done. It's almost there. So next, so we learned that the iterative development is key. So take our early quizzes and hands-on projects, and they were a little clunky at first, but the feedback loop we created with scholars help us course correct fast, offering hands-on project guidance, and providing opportunities for scholar to note areas where the instructions could be improved for clarity, and their feedback is critical to improve curriculum offering. Finally, user-centered design make a massive difference. We test a mentor matching system using actual personas, and one mentee shared that the onboarding form was so straightforward, they completed in less than 10 minutes from their phone while waiting for coffee. So that's a kind of experience we're aiming for. I continue? Okay. So we also realized the power of tangible materials like QR codes, e-flyers, posters, and these are simple tools that has an impact. At KDD 24, so booth occupants and event visitors scan a QR code of a poster, landing them on our resource page and inspiring them to email us, asking us to keep them appraised on any updates to our resources as they find that they might be helpful in their own educational offering. Cross-consortium coordination played an important role too. Instead of each Grand Challenge creating their own flyers or calendar, we create templates and a digital asset for us to market TRM hosted lectures. And not only did it make our outreach looks cohesive, but we also saved hours in duplicated effort. It was a small change with a big payoff. And of course, conference participation gives us critical feedback. at ASHG, someone told us our table setup made it hard to navigate our content. We took that to heart and used that feedback to inform how we are organizing the Scholar portal and any future outreach booths.
Thank you.
We began the year grounding everything in pillars that the Bridge2AI outlined for us: ethics, people, and data. Updating our charters to reflect these pillars helped us realign curriculum goals and even reshape how we thought about mentorship itself. One mentor mentioned it prompted them to think more deeply about how they frame data use ethics during one-on-one scholar meetings specifically. And then the interdisciplinary design of the biomedical AI and ethics curriculum has another huge breakthrough. It wasn't just about throwing a bunch of disciplines into one room. We had clinicians, data scientists, and ethicists co-develop modules. We feel the lectures we have featured on our learning platform reflects that spirit. And finally, the numbers speak for themselves. We have seen a 30% increase in scholar enrollment. It's worth noting this enrollment happened amid this space of kind of scattered resources. So there's no doubt there's a huge demand for this, and we anticipate meeting that demand with our onboarding protocols and our kind of like one-stop shop that we're developing the Scholar portal. And this will assist piloting scalable mentorship models to keep up. And one idea we're also considering is like a peer mentor pod approach where experienced scholars help onboard incoming cohorts and so forth. So next, our collaborative efforts bore this year in a number of meaningful ways. A manuscript, for example, that survived NIH review recently has been submitted to JMIA for publication, and we look forward to announcing said publication soon. We also learned that evaluation tools need to keep pace. Now that we have laid out a strong foundation to keep track of scholar growth and receive stakeholder feedback, we're ready to kick it up a notch with database analysis of scholar growth. Finally, our strategic partnerships have opened up new pathways. Aim Ahead and CFTE collaborations helped us reach broader audiences. We envision inspiring moments in the next year where we possibly see way more Aim Ahead trainees presenting a Bridge2AI aligned project at ISMB. And, mention us during their acknowledgements. That's the kind of ecosystem impact we're aiming for. That's about it.
Okay. This is time for questions. So if anyone has questions for this panel, please walk up to the mics. But I'll kick this off with two questions. I'll start with the first one, which is a lot of times when we're actually training people right now, we often sometimes get too focused on the technology, right? The specifics of particular architectures or particular aspects in AI or data science. And it's moving so quickly. The technologies, the methodologies, all changing so quickly. And one of the directions I think that a lot of people are thinking about is rather than teaching necessarily about the techniques themselves, there does need to be a foundational understanding of some of those methods. What are the critical thinking skills that are necessary? What are the skills that we need to impart to our students, our trainees, so they can learn for themselves in this space? So I'll open it up to the panel if they have any thoughts on this.
I can start. One of the most joyful things I did, not this last year, but the year before, was judge our sort of entrepreneurship challenge, basically trying to design ideas to solve particular problems in voice. How, if you had AI tools that you could use for patients, how would you do that? They got into different groups and then came up with ideas. And the critical thinking that's part of that, especially because they were interdisciplinary groups, is really like, yeah, why are we doing this? Like, what is the purpose of this? What problems could these data solve, which is a lot of the feedback we gave them. And, how would you think about inserting it into that ecosystem, which really required very little about the techniques or approaches and more sort of the problems that could be solved and what the solutions might look like. And so I think thinking through that pipeline, thinking through that approach to the end goal is really, really important so you don't get sort of bogged down early.
Yeah, and I think aligned with that is, to your point, teaching what are the design and development patterns in addition to here are the specific use cases and examples. So what does that study design look like? And during and after implementation, and something that we work a lot with our standards group, how do you document that and make it so that you can actually make the interpretations regardless of which model or models might have been used, and something that it is sometimes challenging to show the importance of that early on, but as people work in the space more and remember that they wrote code 6 weeks ago, I think having that pattern-based experience is definitely very helpful for, maybe being able to move this into specific applications as well as building transferable skills if they move into another domain.
I would also, those two words have been said multiple times, team science. There is someone who will know code better than me. There will someone who has more clinical experience. So it is, probably one degree or 2 degrees to find that person. And then it's finding the common language and communicating and having, whether it's the adaptability, the agility, and humility to realize that what the other person says, I may not be understanding the language, right? It is not a competition in competence or the level of expertise. It is really finding common ground and answering those questions that are, for research or application, are interesting and of value to all involved.
Great. Hello.
I'd like to start by thanking Monique for sharing your story. It's really impressive. Thanks a lot for doing that. I have a question, as Susan Gorogorek alluded yesterday, success stories like Monique's very important to emphasize the impact of this program. What are the projects doing in terms of monitoring the professional progress of the trainees so that we can come up with more stories like Monique's? Are you following the trajectories of your trainees so that we can see that how their professional life is changing?
We're encouraging our trainees to have an ORCID ID. And so even though, it depends on where they are and what they're doing, but we're thinking of how can we create those, follow trails and breadcrumbs so that we don't have to send a survey to them in 6 months or in a year. So that is one of the approaches that we're trying to implement.
And I think one of the other areas is some of the work by Jake Chen's group, and in the knowledge graph, the talent knowledge graph also offers that opportunity. And when the ORCID ID is present, something that makes that tracking much easier, but can start to explore what is that downstream impact on publications, which organizations they're at, in which role, and be able to scope that out beyond that single hop. So it is something that we are looking at on our side as well, but early in that process, especially when if the primary output is looking at a publication, there are publication delays, but looking to explore what are shorter term options to look at that impact as well.
Yeah, and I'll briefly say that one thing that I have really enjoyed most recently is the Bridge Center Chuck's group has ask us to share some of our trainees' information so that they can cross-pollinate, we can follow it, because I think a lot of that's engagement. Having been in informatics education for a long time, even people who get certificates and masters and PhDs, sometimes it's hard to find them. But this group, the data I showed are all basically from feedback from our trainees. So I think it's a really great idea to have them maybe tell a little bit of a narrative story. So maybe that's something that I'll take on, is we can ask them to do that. We have one of our trainees here, and I should have asked Phil Jenkins to come up and present instead of me. Apparently we look quite a lot alike, so maybe you would notice. Anyhow, so I think that's a great idea to really get those stories out about the trajectories that we've changed, much like you said. Beautiful, by the way. That was great.
Oh, I also think it could be important maybe to do like a 1-year follow-up with all the interns to get a sense of where they landed, because speaking with a lot of the interns that I worked with, everybody's doing something really impressive in their careers, but sorry. But I just had the opportunity to speak with you guys today because I'm still working with AI already, but something like a little follow-up would be nice to see where everyone landed.
Great. Okay, so my next question is for both in terms of either being a trainee or being a trainer or mentor, what surprised you when you started down this process of either sort of trying to teach, right, in the Bridge2AI consortium, particularly in the grand challenges, or just to learn in the space?
I feel like one thing that was pretty cool to see was that it was a very diverse group of interns, and we all had different understandings and backgrounds, but the way that the curriculum was set up and the training was set up, we were able to all start at a ground level and still get the knowledge that we needed. Like a lot of us weren't that familiar with AI, how it was built, how it's created, even the uses of it and the potential pitfalls in using AI. But through the time that we experienced training, we all got a really in-depth understanding of what we needed to do for the project. And the like we gained a lot more than I thought we would, and based on the different backgrounds we had.
I'll briefly say, I mentioned this before, but, you know, as a mentor on this, I mean, we're also pretty diverse in terms of the people on the project. And, you know, I didn't know much about voice despite being a physician myself. And so the trainees teach me a ton, and just being engaged in this, I'm just constantly learning. In part because things are moving so fast, and the more cross-pollination we get, the more I learn. I think that has been my biggest surprise so far, is that by working very carefully together, we can sort of assemble this team science puzzle and see our own roles in a different light as AI as this positive disruptor.
Okay, one more question. If someone were to try and create a new training program, where should they start? Given all the experience that you've now had, 2.5 years, and all the other aspects, where would you recommend they start?
I would
I know
think
it's a loaded
that
question.
they don't overthink it because, as you were saying earlier, it moves so fast, right? You developed curriculum 6 months ago. Now it's all about, agents, and do you have that curriculum? And if you try to make it perfect, you will be constantly behind the curve.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, a big one is what is the target audience and training gap you're trying to address, but then being able to quickly iterate on
Yeah.
those training gaps. But for the diversity in what is the definition of informatics or AI, that itself is incredibly broad. Are we talking bioinformatics and genomics, or are we talking clinical side and data standards? So I think picking what is the breadth of the group you are trying to train and what is that baseline, I think was a very important statement of how do you get everybody that's coming into that group on the same page to then further develop out their skills in the areas they're interested in. It's very challenging and just requires that rapid iteration to stay in time.
Okay. I think that's it for the panel. So, I mean, one of the fascinating things in just going through all the sessions today, the one key word that keeps popping up is iterate, right? And that seems to be a recurrent theme across all the different aspects that the Bridge2AI consortium is doing, sort of recognizing both the need, well, not the need, maybe the mandate that was given that to move quickly because the technology is moving quickly, but also to understand that we don't necessarily have the immediate solutions, but you can start somewhere and you can improve upon it. And that's really sort of been one of the long-standing themes in this. Oh, wait, you want to say something?
Yeah, so have we thought about ask AI to generate the educational material so that we can always keep up with AI? It's not like human generates training material of AI, but AI can do that too.
We should do this as an exercise and see what it spits out. Oh, got a comment, your question.
I thought I'd chime in on that because I gave a talk on this 2 weeks ago. Unless you really well tailor your queries, one of the things that O3 at the moment has trouble when designing syllabuses, because I tried to get students to do this for fun, to see if they could out-design my syllabus. is it has some temporal problems. So it looks at knowledge and it doesn't necessarily go, oh, which bit of knowledge from history do I need to teach, right? So you could do some engineering to like get your prompts really, really nice, but I would warn you against kind of letting ChatGPT, for example, play too fast and loose with like the entire of computer science teaching over the last 50 years, because you might find some really fun Fortran exercises in there or something like that.
Some people still use Fortran.
And I was gonna say, I don't mind the Fortran, but yeah, finding it, also getting it to give you good learning objectives on newer technologies, it is not recent enough. And so when you start looking at some of the agents, some of the visible neural network efforts that we are working on, some of the quantum machine learning, it does not have enough content to actually give you materials to develop out.
Okay, I think that's it. Let's thank our panelists. Okay, so this is a great segue because we're going to give the poster awards now.